Hi, this is JoJo from Hookup Baits, and I'm here with Chad Gerlich, and we are the owners of Hookup Baits. This is our first podcast, and I think it's going to be a real special one because we're going to tell our story of how Hookup Baits got started, which I think we have a great story.
Yes, we do.
But before we get into the story, I think it's important that our listeners hear a little bit about you and how long you've been fishing, where you grew up, what was like fishing as a young kid. Give them a little background about that.
I grew up in a neighborhood where 20 rowdy boys, all ranging in ages of 10 years variance, and we fished and fighted. That's what we did as kids, pick fights and fish. I mean, yeah, I just grew up in a neighborhood of fishing, and then my stepdad was into fishing, so he took me fishing a lot. And then I was fortunate my real dad was a hunter, so I had one dad that was a fisherman, one dad that was a hunter, so I got both sides of it. They both took me as a young kid, and then but really it was the neighborhood that was just our thing. We fished. I mean, if there's a body of water, we fished. So I can remember fishing from as far back as I can remember. 4 or 5 years old, I've been fishing, and then like I said, through my teenage years, it was a lot of fishing.
No, freshwater, saltwater.
It was mostly trout fishing, and bass, a lot of freshwater. But then, two of the kids in my neighborhood, their dads had boats, and so from the age 12 all the way to 20, I was out in the summertime with either one of them. Every summer. That's the whole take a kid fishing because I was that kid once. you know. Um, but through my teenage years, there was one part of my teenage years where I used to log how many days I fished, what I caught, and everything else. And one year where I worked on a six-pack boat, and then I was a sponsored trout fisherman and stuff. I fished every day of the year except 11 days. So
wow.
Yeah, and then the next year after that, I fished every day of the year except for like 20-something days. So I almost fished every day for 2 years straight.
So nothing's really changed now. Now that you're with Hookup Baits, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then I just continued fishing the whole time. So there was a little stint where I got into bow hunting really heavy. I still fished, but it wasn't my number one thing. And then went back to fishing, and then especially with creating Hookup Baits with you, then really fishing really. Now it became my job and my career, and now it's definitely top of my things I do for sure. So,
well, let's
well,
share.
What's your history in fishing, Miss JoJo?
Well, certainly I come from a fishing and hunting background with grandparents and parents that did that. We spent our summers in San Felipe, Mexico, where Grandma and Grandpa had a home, and if we weren't fishing every single day, we were horseback riding or going along the beach looking for fish and things to pick up, and so forth. So certainly come from a fishing background, and how important that is as a passion of a family to have.
Well, your mom and your grandma were tournament anglers. They're like the most winningest woman tournament anglers in Yuma.
That is true. If Grandma Evelyn was alive, she would be right here with you. You could not keep her off the water. She won every tournament. Mom was her tournament partner, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And she's been a big part of all this with some rods that we've recently brought back to life for you to win some tournaments with.
She used to wrap rods, and now we're unwrapping them and redoing them and making them, modern.
That's
and
right.
It's awesome.
That's right.
It's hard to get that right action that some of those little rods have. That's what I like about them.
Exactly.
So, and so your mom and grandma was more fishermen than your dad, which is cool.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But let's start with the night that Hookup Baits, the idea kind of started, and share with our listeners of what that night was about, and kind of take it from there.
You want me to tell the story?
Yes.
So we were dating. This is 6 years. We've been in business for 6 years now. So 6 years ago, and this is midsummer, I guess we started dating. And then after, I think it was a month or more, We were dating for a while, anyways.
About 3 months.
Yeah, and I would come to San Diego and we'd dance. First thing we'd always do. I'm a dancer and know how to line dance and two-step. Taught children
You
to
are
two-step.
you are a good dancer.
And so the first thing we always do is go to a country bar down here in downtown San Diego, and so we were dancing and took a break and having some drinks and stuff. And she asked me, "How was your day?" And I just happened to have a really rough day that day. Working in Elsinore on top of a school, changing out cameras. My first business was in the surveillance stuff, and it was 100 degrees outside, and just one of those days where it just wasn't fun. And I'm like, "Oh, my day sucked." "Oh, do you like what you do for a living?" And I'm like, "No, I hate it. I've been doing it since high school." And so then she asked the question of, "Well, what would you like to do for a living?" And actually at that time I was secretly setting up to go to Alaska to be a full-time guide in Alaska, just kind of disappear off the radar kind of thing, and go to Alaska and become a fishing guide. And she heard that news and she kind of got a little sad.
I did.
And then so, "Oh, come to San Diego and be a guide." And I explained to her that San Diego don't work that way. You work on charter boats, which I did a little bit of that as a younger kid, and I didn't want to do that. And then or you're your own guide, but it's your own business. It's your own boat, it's your insurance, you're advertising yourself to get your clientele. And I was like, I already been in business for 12 years. I don't want to be in business for myself anymore, really, and have to deal with all that. I just want to go work for a lodge, and my whole job is take people fishing so they catch fish. I've always loved getting people hooked up on fish and keep them alive. That's my whole responsibility. And so she's like, "Oh, well, okay." And just knowing JoJo, she's a very smart businesswoman. Always been a business career woman, and built her own business, and in the financial world, and so I've had this idea of this lure in my head for 5 years, and really only told one person. I was pro staffing for a guy that made tube jigs and stuff, and at one time said, "Hey, have you ever thought about making them like this and doing this and trying that?" And it's just everybody just don't think outside the box. It's just, "Nah, they're made like this. We just make our own colors." Okay. That's not the only person I ever told about my ideas, really. And so I was like, I was thinking, I'm like, and to me, my mind works a little different. It's I was diagnosed dyslexic when I was in junior high, and which all it basically makes you read slow. But I comprehend very well. Mm-hmm. But through life, I learned dyslexic people's minds are just they work differently. A lot of people, famous people, are rich people, are dyslexic people. Richard Branson, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And further I got in life, I noticed that my brain just works different than most guys' brains, and that this lure, and really making this lure, my first business became pretty successful because I thought differently. Mm-hmm. I thought of a different way of doing surveillance than anybody else was doing, and it worked great for 10, 12 years until technology caught up to it. So then creating hookup baits, that's when it's like, wow, when everyone was like, "How did you think of that? It was amazing." It's like, to me, it's like it was been in my head for 5 years. I was waiting for someone to make it. So just knowing the idea and kind of being tired of someone not making my lure that's in my head, it just like a little light bulb just went off in my head, and I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "I can make the most productive, most efficient lure ever made." And she's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Have you ever made one?" I'm like, "No."
I remember that, yes.
Nope, never made one. I go, "But if I can figure out how to make what's in my head into a real thing, it'll change the fishing industry. It's just, I know it'll work." And she's like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." And I guess just the confidence of what I knew I could make.
It was the confidence in your voice and how you said it that I just knew this was a winner. But continue.
Sold that one, right? Huh?
Yeah.
And so she's like, we thought about it and talked about it for a few minutes, and she says, "Okay, I'll tell you what." She goes, my business I've built is on kind of on cruise control. I have my customer base and everything else. I got time to build another business. And being in the fishing industry, it'd be, awesome, and it'd be a tribute to my grandma and all this, that. And I'm like,
Keep
okay.
you in San Diego. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yes.
She goes, but you would have to come to San Diego and, we'd run the business together. And I'm like, okay, well, how's this going to work? And she said, you're going to take care of.
I'll do the business. I'll do all the planning. I need you to design, promotion, and fish.
That's right. Well, yeah, design, promotion, and fish. Well, boy, that was hard. The three things I have a passion for, right?
Yes, you're listening closely, girls, of how to get a guy.
Yeah, offer a guy his three main passions, and he's going to be all about it.
I'm trying.
Now, luckily, I liked her a lot, too. So,
and so that night, the idea, and obviously we decided of what our roles would be.
Yeah.
And
the next 50-50 owners.
Yep. And then the next day, you headed back to your place.
Yeah, I was living in Riverside at the time. It's 2-hour drive from San Diego inland, and stopped at Walmart, bought a couple fold-out tables. I lived in a little granny house behind a house kind of thing. It was a perfect bachelor pad for me, and just the next morning.
I mean, what did this feel like? I mean, you've got a whole new window and a new opportunity. What did this feel like?
Well, knowing what it was in my head and being able to, now I got the chance to actually make it, was just like one of the funnest things I ever did in my life. It just, at that time I was semi-retired with my other business. I had the time, and we put our money together for the funding of buying all the equipment and everything else. So I had the time, I had the money, and I wasn't going to stop until I made what was in my head. And so it just, the next morning, ordered plastic and lead and hooks and molds and melters and all this stuff, and just really went into mad scientist mode for, I was planning on a month. I totally, being semi-retired, I could schedule no jobs, and just every day, 10 to 15 hours a day, I was waking up. A lot of times I forget to even put clothes on. The best time I'd wake up in the morning, and that's when my brain just works, and all of a sudden something would hit me. I'm like, oh, jump out of bed, take a piss, and start working. And then it's like around noon or so, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go throw these in the pool. Oh, okay, well, I got to get dressed first. I got to put something on. So yes, hookup baits were made partially nude.
Great. And so you had a pool outside of your place.
Yeah, I had a pool right out my back door, so it was perfect for testing. I mean, I had my testing thing right there, and go out there and for hours, just whatever I would make. A lot of times I would make like 10 different versions, different plastic, different cuts, different hook. I'd make them all, then sit there and cast them until that one's getting closer to it. Okay, then go off of that one. Okay, now that one's getting closer to the action or whatever I want. And it just kept on doing that. And then to really check the action, it's actually my real dad's house, owned the house in front. And so he would get home and, hey, Dad, he was the hunter dad, so he didn't know how to fish much at all. Here's how you cast, and here's how I want you to retrieve it, and all this kind of stuff. I had to teach him all that, and then I would get in the pool with the goggles and watch it do its sink and watch it do its action while he's retrieving it and all that stuff. He thought I was a nut, but he loved every second of it. He got to spend some good times with me doing that, so it was fun. And then so every week, whatever I'd make, I'd bring back to San Diego. Mm-hmm. Me and JoJo would get a rental skiff out of Mission Bay or San Diego and go out and fish. And at that time, the Kitex, I'd fish the bays. I've been fishing the bays all my life, mostly. And then trout fishing was my other big thing. And then obviously saltwater. But, the Kitex in the bay, that was my go-to. A Kitex on a 1/4-ounce lead head. And so I would set one rod up with a Kitex swim bait, and then me with whatever I made that week. And we'd fish half the day and then switch rods and then fish the rest of the day. And right off the bat, the first prototypes of hookup baits were doing just as well as the Kitex I was using. So I was like, hey, this is actually cool. It's working like I thought. Then we did that for about 2 months of design mode and, getting it better and better. And after those 2 months, it was like, okay, yeah, we got something. They are working. They are doing really well. And then it just so happened October then. He said, all right, this is going to be something. I guess we got to start the business. So moved to San Diego. JoJo had a house that had a basement area. It was just dirt.
Unfinished, yeah.
Yeah, unfinished basement area, but it was a space. And I was able to make a big bench and put in some lights and stuff. And so it really started in a basement. And then trout season, I've been a trout fisherman all my life, but trout fishing in San Diego really never been popular. I used to come to San Diego when I was 16 through mid-20s and trout fish in San Diego because there's great lakes out here and great trout they stock in the wintertime, but people didn't fish trout in San Diego. Everything in San Diego was ocean or largemouth bass. It just so happened that year trout fishing became the cool thing to do with all the deck hands and the boat captains in their off season. They all started trout fishing. And all of a sudden there's this guy at this lake that's catching fish after fish after fish, and they're the guys. They're the fishermen.
Right.
And they're like, what the heck is this guy? Who is this guy? And what's he using? And I started, it's hookup baits. It's hookup baits. And so, and my house, JoJo's house was in a pretty nice neighborhood, really nice neighborhood in San Diego. And I had guys pulling up, and I was going out with baggies, giving them baits. And then I was in the basement all day just cooking, making baits.
My neighbors had no idea what was going on.
So we did a few months of that, and she's like, yeah, we got to stop this.
Yeah.
They're going to get the wrong idea going on here, dealing baits. But I would go to the lake, and me and Tim, I met Tim, my good friend, out at one of the lakes one day, and he was on disability at the time. And we started fishing together. And I would just go out there with basically a Plano box of baits and sell them. And I would come back every day with just a wad of cash in my pocket every day. So that's how Hookup Baits started, just selling them.
And you guys shared them with people out on trout fishing, and I mean, you really got the word out quite quickly.
Yeah, and so the end of that one trout season in San Diego, pretty much every fisherman in San Diego knew what a Hookup Baits was. But they only knew them as trout baits. And as I was telling them, I'm like, I make bigger ones for the bay, for the saltwater. And they're like, yeah. A swim bait, an iron, or a live bait. That's the only thing in the ocean. That's what everyone's mind was set to. And trying to get people to go out of their set mind, a tube bait. No, those are for freshwater. Those will never work in the ocean. That's kind of what it felt like. They would just not. Yeah, whatever. We'll use them for trout. That's all I was getting. And so I started, fishing. We bought a Hobie kayak, and I started doing a lot of kayaking in the bays.
A tandem one.
Yeah, it's a tandem. We got a tandem Hobie kayak, and fishing the bay. I caught that one 25-pound halibut out of Mission Bay. Then I caught another
on Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
And then I caught another big one out of San Diego Bay, that 15-pounder or so, and then just catching big spotties and legal halibut every time you fish. And I'm posting them, and people are like, yeah, right. Just would not believe that the hookup baits were working in the bays. So I'm like, I'm going to start going to La Jolla, see what I can catch out there. Went out to La Jolla, started catching calicos, big calicos, and they're all spitting up this red crab. I've never seen a red crab in my life. They're all spitting these red crabs out, and they're still moving like they ate a red crab and then ate my bait, And started taking pictures of these red crabs, went back to my basement, made a bunch of red ones, matched exactly the color. Next time I went out there with that red crab.
You even took a picture of the bait and the red crab together.
Oh, yeah, they matched perfectly. A red crab really is gold on the bottom, red on top. That's a red crab bait. It's gold on the bed and bottom, red on top. I mean, matched it perfect. And the first time I went out to La Jolla, caught a 32-pound yellow. First time using a hookup bait, and then multiple big calicos. And then I hooked another big fish, and I was fighting it. And I'm like, no, I got 32-pound yellow. I'm thinking now I have a 50, 60-pound white sea bass. Finally get it up, and it was like a 6 or 7 foot soup fin shark. Actually ate the red crab bait too. So I'm like, wow, okay, these work really well. And even when I was posting those, post those, and you get all these people, right, you're a fly line and a mackerel and stuck your bait in your mouth. And I was getting called, oh, you're a bait hanger. This because the people just could not concept these baits working in the saltwater.
Well, it was different. It was something.
Yeah, it was different, and so I finally, I was getting a little bit fed up with it, so I was like, okay, we need to get a boat. So we're like, okay, so we got a Freedom Boat Club. You know, instead of buying a boat.
Hold that thought.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to bring listeners back to talk about the Freedom Boat and what the next steps were. So we'll be right back.
Right.
Thanks. Welcome back. We're going to pick up about the story of how Hookup Baits got started. And so now we have a Freedom Boat Club membership.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change things for us?
Well, do you remember that first trip out?
I do. Why don't you tell the listeners?
Yeah, we just we had to take our boating courses with Freedom Boat Club and stuff. Great club. Is actually when they just were getting started here in San Diego. It's a big East Coast and South Coast. You know, kind of. They started on that side of the country, and I think San Diego was the first one, and they were just getting going. We joined it, and we went out to the Point Loma kelp beds. We immediately started catching bass. Within the first hour or two, you caught a little yellowtail, and then from there, I just started learning the spots, you know, the hard structure spots around and stuff, and catching bass, sand bass, and calicos like crazy. And fishing the bay a lot, and we're catching all these fish. You know, I started putting together more. You started following a lot of people on social media, and you know, then that's where I found out about the SBS tournaments and stuff, and then saw, oh wow, these guys fish actually bass tournaments, and so I started following all them, then seeing what they're weighing in at the tournaments and what these guys catch on their regular fun days of fishing that they're posting and stuff. I'm like, well, I do that. I feel like I'm up there with these guys. So and then that just idea hit me. Okay, nobody's buying that these baits are catching fish out in the saltwater. Well, what if I do tournaments where you have to use artificial baits? They check your baits, your bait tank, or you can't have live bait. Well, if I do okay on those, they're gonna believe me. I'm catching these fish on tube baits, right? And so I came home and. Remember that I just came to go, I think I need to start doing tournaments, you know? And she's like, well, how are you going to do that? We don't have a boat. Have you ever done saltwater tournaments? And I'm like, no. I go, and the Freedom Boat Club started really liking us because they have their own Facebook page and we're posting yellowtail and bass and halibut.
Well, you also doing seminars for them as well.
That's the owner of Freedom Boat Club came to me and says, hey, I keep losing members because they can't catch fish. Can you teach them what you're doing? And so I started doing seminars for him on, a lot of it was just using the fish finder, boat positioning, you know, how to use the baits, and trying to help other club members catch fish so they would stop canceling. And it worked for, you know, the people I was doing it for. And so the owner and me became pretty good friends. And so I was like, you know, so I just do these tournaments. And I'm like, I think I can get Freedom Boat Club to make sure we have a boat for the tournaments. And so, you know, you're always up for anything I'm for. So he's like, sure. And so I contacted him. Hey, I'm going to start doing professional saltwater bass tournaments, but I need to make sure I have a boat. And so we're like, oh yeah, we'll do a sponsorship thing. You know, just say that you're using Freedom Boat Club to do your tournaments, and we'll make sure you have a boat. Then at this time another franchise opened up in Huntington, which was perfect because the saltwater bass series goes up and down the coast. And so I was like, okay, well, we have to get the franchise in Huntington to come on too with the same agreement. And he's like, I know the guy, you know, somewhat, you know, I'll talk to him. And so he talked to him and he was able to get me sponsored by the Huntington Beach and the San Diego Freedom Boats. And so I did the first 2 seasons using Freedom Boat Club boats.
So we have the bait.
Mm-hmm.
We have
a boat.
Mm-hmm. Tell me how you chose your tournament partner.
Good old Al. I met Al through bow hunting. I don't even know how long ago. It was at least 20 years ago. And just back then I had my own boat. We mainly fished, you know, the Catalina Islands when I lived in Riverside. And we would go to Catalina Island like every weekend pretty much. Live squid fishing was my thing. Fishing a squid, live squid on the leadhead, that was like my jam. So we did that a lot. And And Al, was like, oh yeah, I'm a big fisherman too and stuff. And so Al started coming with me on my boat, and his son happened to be the same age as my son, so it worked out perfect. And yeah, Al was a stick right from the get go. He was like, man, this guy can fish, and we just get along really well. So it was thinking of a partner was without a doubt Al. Al's got to fish these with me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I called Al. Hey Al, we're gonna start fishing saltwater bass tournaments. He's like, okay. He's like, which tournament are we fishing? And I'm like, oh, we're fishing the saltwater bass series. He's like, damn, that's like big time.
Yeah, you didn't start at the small tournaments. You just went right to the top.
Yeah, that's back when saltwater bass series only had the open classes. There was no rookie classes. Just you get thrown right in there with the guys that've been doing it forever. So I'm like, yeah, I think I can hang. And actually, remember telling him this. I go, if we can win a tournament or two over the next couple of years, we'll be good. It'll be fine. And then I told JoJo, I want to make a goal of win maybe a championship in the next 5 years. And she's like, cool. So actually, that Freedom Boat Club wasn't the first. I mean, not the Freedom Boat. The Saltwater Bass Series wasn't the first tournament we did. We had that something of the West, or the one that the Ballast Point guys might put on.
Yes.
I forgot what they called it, but that was the last tournament they did for that group they're trying to get going, and we did it, and it was a calico bass only one, San Diego. And we did pretty well. I think we're in the top 5 or 6 or something like that. So we're like, hey, we actually did the under 10th place. That was pretty cool. And then the saltwater bass series started, and the first tournament we ever did, we won. We're like, wow, we won. And all these guys that never seen us, the couple that seen us on that first tournament, kind of knew a little bit who we were. And then we did the next one, and we won again. Then we got like a second place, and then we won again. I mean, the first series, I think we won almost every tournament but 2 of the whole series of first place. Then the championship came, and then we won the championship. And we were just like, whoa, we were not expecting that at all. And it was just the magic of the baits and deep water structure fishing, where nobody was deep water. We were the only ones out there on deep water structure, and the hookup baits are unmatched by anything on deep water structure. And so it was, and that was back when they just didn't have calico only or anything, so sand bass was open. Well, you fish a deep water structure with a hookup bait, you're going to put a limit of 5 and 6 pound sand bass together every single time.
Now tell me a little bit more about the deep structure. Why is the hookup baits so effective?
Well, it's just to have the glide.
Okay.
A swim bait has to swim for it to be effective. Well, when you're swimming it, it's swimming away from the fish. Mm-hmm. On a glide, the bait is gliding right into the fish's face. And so we're down there sitting on a rock, that bait comes doing its action it's supposed to do, and it's doing it right into the fish's face. He's going to eat it every time. The fish has to be really hungry to come off his rock and go chase that bait, that's 10, 20 feet above him. So that's the difference of a swim bait versus a hookup bait. And that's why our it's magic on deep water structure. They're very easy to fish. And then we fished the next year. Same thing. Just ran the whole tournament, won the championship again, and then all of a sudden, our saltwater market just started going. And once it started going, it just kept on going until year number 3 up at Channel Islands, when Channel Islands every spring has a big white sea bass fishery. Well, there's one spring where there's no live squid available, no fin bait available. Somebody started throwing a red crab hookup bait and catching all those white sea bass in the ocean. And so it got to, all of a sudden, we here at the shop, we're just like getting orders of 100, 200.
We couldn't make enough of them.
Red crabs at the time. We're like, what the heck is going on? And all the boats in Ventura and Oxnard and Santa Barbara was like, okay, if you make your reservations, make sure you're bringing red crab hookup baits with you. I mean, that was, you had to bring hookup baits with you for them to let you on the boat. I mean, they basically said, if you don't have red crab hookup baits, you're not going to catch a fish. And that was just like, that even expanded our saltwater market even more to where year number 4, we sell trout baits. People are like, you guys make trout baits? The saltwater game just got so huge. We started with the trout baits and people totally forgot that we even made a trout bait. Once I think by year 5, we had pretty much the coast of the West Coast from Oregon, even up into Alaska and Canada, and all the way into Mexico. Especially from Central California to Mexico, everybody that fished the coast knew what a hookup bait was. That market was still, I was time to get the trout market back. And so then I went back and worked on the trout market, and we got some great ambassadors to fish the local trout lakes. I concentrated on all native trout, in Utah and Nevada and Oregon and Wyoming, Sierras. And now our trout game is just as solid as our saltwater game. And
so at what point do you realize that what you have designed, what you're manufacturing, at what point did you realize how effective and versatile the bait is that you designed? I mean, at what point did the light bulb come on that you said, wow, this is an amazing bait that I have designed? I mean, have you had it yet, or is it coming? Or
I've had it so many times, it's crazy. The one time I can remember was our third year at Fred Hall. We did our first Fred Hall at Long Beach. We were only 3 months into business.
Yes,
it just happened to be the next show that was
in the
coming.
Hotel, and it was a little rough, but we made it there. Yes, yes.
It was just me, you, Tim, and Tara.
Yeah.
And we did a little booth, and we paid for the booth and stuff. Then the second year was a little bit better.
Yeah.
Then the third year,
we came out.
Oh my goodness! We were one of the most busiest booths, and the show was packed, and it was just like, it was insane how many baits we were selling, how many people were loving the baits, and it was like, that's like, holy smokes, here it goes. And and truthfully, still when I use the baits now, they work way better than I ever imagined to actually work. So it's one of those things that I knew it was gonna be good. No, they are really good. They are like amazing. And now having the chance of go all over the place. We've been to Canada a couple times, been down in Mexico a few times, been to Florida, and just smallmouth fishing, lake trout fishing. I mean, just the variety of fish I've been catching, the places I go fishing for whatever fish, and I'm seeing the more places I go, the baits have the same effect. Mm-hmm. Anywhere. They don't just catch trout, and they just don't catch calico bass. They catch snook and rockfish and lingcod and salmon. It does the same thing on every fish. It doesn't matter what fish. If it's a fish that eats another fish, you're gonna have the same results fishing a hookup bait. And that's another thing that's like telling me is like, holy smokes, these things, just like the whole part of versatile. Mm-hmm. Talk about versatile. Oh my God, it'll catch any fish anywhere in the country. So just fishing around the country, fishing for all fish. Just every fish eats it, and that's what told me. That's another one that hit me of like, wow, these things work, and they work on everything and anywhere. And that's it just goes. It just keeps on going and building off of that. It's just awesome.
So, 5 years from now, where's Hookup Baits? Where would Hookup Baits be in your mind?
You ask me this stuff all the time.
I do all the time, yes.
Oh, I'm hoping it just, my job now is just basically lighting the Hookup Baits fire into different areas. We got great people that work in the shop now. Good old Mr. Shop Supervisor Ronnie made it so I can hit the road more, do more sales, and promote the baits to different things. I mean, Pyramid Lake right now is just a huge, for the last 2 years of the work I've been doing there, and now that's a huge market for us. Lit the fire there, and it goes, now I got to pick somewhere else. I'm going to go light the fire next, I'm hoping maybe the South Coast, these baits work fantastic for redfish and snook and all that kind of stuff. I need to go light that fire, So I'm just seeing if, over the next 5 years, I'm going to go to different destinations and light the Hookup Bait fire, and it's not just going there once and catching fish. It's what we learned from Pyramid. And that's what we learned here first. People see a fish postings. Oh, wow, that guy caught a lot of big fish.
Just luck. Or
Yeah. He found a good school, or they were biting that day. Then they see it again. Wow, it's that guy again. And then they might say, what was he using? And then they see it a third time. Dang it, it's that guy. Wow. Okay, well, I got to start looking into what he's using. Then it's the fourth and fifth time. Then you start seeing, orders start coming in from wherever it is, and then other people using the baits, and then it goes. It's a consistency thing, and you got to catch fish each time. Which if you're using the hookup baits and you're using it correctly, it shouldn't be a problem.
Well, it's just not the pose, but also we're getting back to our roots where you and Tim were out weekly and fishing with others and sharing the baits, and that's what you're doing now. Is you're back with the customers.
When I go to the lake, I'm fishing with people.
Exactly.
It's like, I'll walk up on the beach at like Pyramid, because it's prime examples, and cast out and catch a fish on my third cast. Then I'll catch one on my fifth cast. Then they're like, looking at me strange. They look at me strange, or what you're using. I'll show you what I'm using. Better yet, I'm going to give you a couple. And doing that thing and just talk with them. And you do that over and over and over again. The market just goes. It's awesome. It's one thing to have a bait that works well, but then being able to help people, which has always been a theory from the very beginning with us. If you're using a hookup bait, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you catch fish with that hookup bait. And that's kind of what makes us different. It's we started this business very personal, me and you. We're let everybody know. Here's us. We're the owners of Hookup Baits. We're right here. There's almost every company out there. You don't know who invented the baits. You don't know who owns the company. You don't know anything.
Well, and you take the time to answer every question that comes in, whether it be you personally on social media, or I'm bringing the questions from the website to you every morning, and we take an hour every morning and we go over all the questions, and I get back to our customers. I mean, it is a very personable, response from the designer and the owner.
Yeah, and we've always taken pride on that, and we've also taken heat because of that. So it's a double-edged sword, but I think we both feel that taking care of our customers that are actually real customers is more important than the other stuff that you get from people knowing that we are the owners. So I don't have no regrets on that. But yeah, it's just in 5 years, hopefully I have my own fishing TV show promoting hookup baits across the country that way, not only social media, but through a fishing TV show.
Well, let's make sure you have clothes on for this one, because making the baits, you half the time had clothes on, didn't have clothes on. So I will require clothes for that one.
Really?
Yes.
You will?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
As we kind of wrap up things, let's talk about why we decided to have a podcast and what makes us different, what we want our customers to hear and continue listening to.
Well, and my thought of that is, Hookup Baits has always been, I've been the face of it. I've been the guy. Where JoJo is just as important as I have ever been with Hookup Baits. And making all this happen. Making it do what I can do, I want to be able to do without you. And so, trying to take Hookup Baits to the next level, we're thinking, what else can we do for our customers, and our fan base and everything else. I can only spend so much time a day answering questions on social media, and I only can spend so much of a day sharing stories and this, that, and, you listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm not a big podcast listener too much, but you do.
All the time.
And you came up with the idea, you know what, let's do a podcast for our customers, and spread the wealth of knowledge and just stories and just who we are with our customers. And I'm the same way. Hey, it sounds great to me. Whatever. I like talking. It's fine with me. But just so everybody knows, I'm not the host of this podcast. JoJo's the star of this podcast. She's the person. She's the girl. And I think it's totally cool to have a woman in the fishing world doing a podcast. I'll always be here as a co-host to answer fishing questions. JoJo's very knowledgeable, but she just doesn't know a lot of the stuff I know. Or, I'm on the water 2 to 5 days a week, year round, somewhere. And I've only tied on a hookup bait in the last 6 years, no matter where I was in the world. So I've learned so many different techniques and so many little things to do with the baits that, if there's any question about the baits, I'm going to know it better than anybody in this world.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm going to be here for. you know, but, and then plus the people we've met in this industry, we have a lot of big names in this industry that we've became very close friends with.
That have helped us get to
Oh,
where
my
we're
God.
at. I mean, we can't forget about those people.
Oh yeah, they
and never will.
helped us along the way, and they still help us. But they're the president of CCA and fishing shows and fish biologists and all these people that just are great friends of ours that we can share them with our people. Too. So
Well, and
we have a
the
wealth of
culture as
knowledge
well.
between
Yeah.
me and the Hookup Bait team, and then the people that we know in the industry now. We have this wealth of people. Let's share it with our customers. And so I think that's what the great idea of having a podcast and keeping it positive. That's something we always try to spread in the fishing community because we have seen a lot of the negative part of it. And we made it a rule of if it's negative and you're in our fishing industry,
Right.
you are blocked and deleted and no longer part of our world. We only support positivity. And we wanted to make our podcast that way. Just positive, educational, and help people catch fish. I mean, that's what we do. That's what we're in the business of. We're not in the business of making lures. We're in the business of people catching fish, making memories, making dreams come true. That's what I say every time I leave the house.
You're going to make people's dreams come true.
That's right.
And when you walk through the door, what's the first question I ask you?
Well, did you make the dreams come true?
Yes.
Most of the time, yes, I do.
Yes.
So, and that was mostly with the veterans. We take veterans fishing, we take kids fishing.
The GROM program.
The GROM program is just, and every time to go make dreams come true. See you later. And I really felt like I was making dreams come true, and it's just an awesome opportunity to have.
Well, and I think it's also based on the foundation that many things I love about you, but this is certainly one of them, is you are constantly learning. And it doesn't matter if you're in design mode or you're on the water, you're constantly learning. And that wealth of knowledge that you have, as well as that you've embedded in our Hookup Baits team and people that know you well, I think this podcast will be a great segment to sharing that knowledge, not just with you, but with what you've shared with others people as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's and I'm very open to sharing my knowledge with others. I don't keep things a secret. I mean, it's more important to me to help people catch fish than being the best fisherman in the world. You know what I mean? It's just.
But you are a really good fisherman.
I do okay. It's just, but my passion is really designing the best bait I can possibly make. I mean, I'm constantly testing these baits in every way and shape and form to make them even better. That's my big passion. And then others is helping other people catch fish on them. That's something you designed from the ground up, and to see so many people catching fish on them. I mean, just today I got that video of a kid catching a nice calico bass on a push button rod. I mean, he's maybe 5 years old, if that.
It's priceless.
I mean, it's awesome. Just getting videos like that, it just makes doing this all worth it, like big time. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, and I just hope to keep that going, just even more so with more people. The more people I get fishing my baits, the more time I get videos like that. Right?
Yep.
So that's what I'm all about. And of course I'm with the tournament fishing and everything. Of course I'm competitive. I like being good. I mean, I'm going to always try my hardest, and that's what part of learning. If you stop learning, if I stopped learning every time I went fishing, I wouldn't fish no more. That's the big part of it. It's learning something new every time you go out. San Diego, I got marked out so well, and when I go out on my boat and I get to put a new pin down on my Navionics map. Oh my God, I get so excited. I learned a new spot. It's awesome. I love it. Just that part of it is just learning. Never stop learning when you go out fishing. And that's what made, just through 30 years of trout fishing and watching how fish react to baits and what made that fish bite and why did it bite and why'd that fish follow it and didn't bite and all that stuff. I just learned from each one of those experiences through 30 years of trout fishing. And that's what these baits were designed from. It's just those experiences that I put in the back of my mind over and over again while I'm fishing. Just learning.
Well, and
learning.
passing this knowledge on to our young anglers who are the future of fishing.
And there's, we have some of our ambassadors. I mean, just they remind me of me.
And some want to be you,
when
yes.
I was 15
yes.
years old, just live to fish. It's just everything, and that's how it was for me when I was a teenager, and for them to see me where I fish for a living, basically now, and of course that's what they want to do, So it's just I love seeing that passion in these kids that are coming up. And they all know I'll do anything for them to keep that passion alive. So it's awesome. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. Spreading the passion, spreading the wealth of knowledge, spreading just the love of hookup baits. We have a great product. Look at these. When you order online, this is where it comes from, right here. So it's just, we're going to just keep on going. And this is just another thing that we're adding to the hookup baits world. It's just a podcast.
Absolutely.
And I think you got the hostess with the mostest.
Well, thank you for always sharing. The favorite thing, one of the favorite things I do like about you is the stories and the sharing.
I think that's where this podcast also came from, is when we take our trips driving. We'll drive to Pyramid. It's a 9.5 hour drive. And JoJo would just ask me questions. So why does this happen? Or what makes that happen? And I'd go into my answers, and she just sits there and just is like,
I learned something every single time.
Yeah, she's like, we need to figure out a way to share this with our customers. When I ask you these questions and the way you answer them, we need to figure out how to share that with our customers. And so here we are.
Now we have the podcast. Well, look forward to many more to come. And we have a lot of people that we have on our list that we're going to interview that you're just going to love with the information they have to share as well. So look forward to our next podcast here at Hookup Baits. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you.